take the 2v1, back up, wait for his teammates to get revived. That was a huge dropped opportunity, in my opinion, for Morph. But they've been doing good so far this game. They've been picking up the points, and a double nade. Nongshim Red Force just can't be stopped.
They hold Morph to task, and that is really good news as well for the teams chasing, because Morph have been slowed on their extension. They should have had one of the best spots here moving into this next circle, but both of these two teams now going to be denied that opportunity. A really good holdout for Nongshim Red Force. Despite losing two of their players, they stop Morph's progression. So in the long run, in the tournament game, rather than just in this match, it's a good result for Nongshim.
Definitely so. Circle popping up right in the middle. Nextruya is the next big team that really has to make a move. They do have 4 up. They could contest 7th Element's position here. 7th Element caught in between Nextruya and the solo out of STE. Shing, last one up for STE.
Boo-boo-hoo, very, very low. Sporter with a nade. Been on point so far with these. And another one through the door might just find it. Damage is there, but not quite the knock as the push comes through. I think he's out of meds. I think he's just going for a crazy push. Yeah. It's not going to work out, though. Sporter's too quick with it. And that is going to be morphed down. 7 points on the match. I think they got a placement point or 2 as well. So they'll be up a little bit ahead of Enigma Galaxy. They'll extend that lead a little bit further. And Yudo Alliance went down as well. So they can continue to stay as safe as possible.
Yeah. Great hold out of Nongshim. The start of that fight, it was Morph's advantage through and through. But Nongshim Red Force, just such a veteran team, holding that off. Here comes that push I was talking about. Nextruya onto 7th Element. DBS catches the first one. And Shing with the perfectly timed third party as a solo nonetheless. Usually solos are way more passive, but he's right here to take the fight when it's breaking out.
2 players from 7th Element. Nextruya rolling in now with 3 after that flush goes through. If you can shred through Nextruya, Shing actually has a pretty decent chance of holding face on this western hillside, but GokuBot on the off angle going to prove to be tricky to deal with. We'll see if he's able to have an impact into this engagement. Nades keep going long, and Shing is fighting through. I mean, this staggered hillside, right? These stages, these plateaus, these ridges as it goes down, giving him a lot of movement potential. Not really too many sightlines to worry about from Ducksan as well down the hill.
And notice where he's throwing the smokes. He's not throwing it on top of him because that's just going to attract the util. He's blocking the lines of sight and throwing it away from him. He gets further into the zone. Maybe he's trying to get into a spot where he could kind of just sneak by and let Nextruya and 7th Element take the fight. That would be the most opportune way to play this out. Another nade putting out some damage. No knock, however. 7 teams up. Not yet in the higher placements of points, so he does need to survive a bit longer.
Pops the smoke behind him as well, so maybe continuing that distraction game. Looking for someone to peek from Nextruya. They don't need to just yet. They don't need to go aggressive, but Shing is such an operative in this location. Nongshim Red Force might be able to sneak a couple of shots over that way if they can find an angle, but they're still a little bit around that headland. It goes down the side of this hill. Harry Potter Tower's still in. Intense game, a more central position than most. And the next zone just about to close.
Oh, that shift is really good for Shing. It is going to let 7th Element come in to the fray and most likely engage with Nextruya. And you can see that he already has sightlines. He's waiting for it. And he has to take these shots at some point because they need to push in. That gives Shing a perfect time to third party. And Nongshim Red Force on that northeast, if enough fighting breaks out, if too much happens in the elimination feed, they can swing out over the top with a perfect timing and just take the whole northern half.
Ducksan starting to move forwards now. 4 players alive. They're also playing to secure their spot over the bubble. I think they've spotted 7th Element, QX. Putting some damage through that T24 OP. That was a stun grenade, but he stunned himself. Shing is there. He steps up, goes for one, doesn't take any damage in response, and he's lighting them up from the sidelines. He needs to go down for them to move forwards, but he's still holding out. A lot of damage sent back his way, but that's going to allow 7th Element to step up, and Nextruya are this way and that way, and they don't know what's going on. They need to be on the swivel more than this, but GokuBot steps out into the blue, most likely going to go down here as Ducksan step in, and Shing is doing so much on this northern side.
Shing the solo. Nextruya still alive with 2. Looking at the right side of the charts, yeah, well, Nextruya got really lucky. I think 7th Element just way too hesitant. If they just pulled the trigger earlier, they could have taken a more isolated fight. against the north side, but Duxon now coming in, looking to clean out next Ruya. They don't know about Xing. Xing is just silently scooching away right now. Like, yeah, I was never here.
He's thrown down the smoke bomb. He's whipped the cape around and no one can see him now. Goodness me. XZY takes shots down the hill over towards NB, but their position's now known and nades are starting to fly. 2 players forwards for NB. They're playing 2 and 2, but this is the backstab coming through from McGrellan as well from Intense Game. They're right on the edge. XZY goes down, but it's traded off. Sporter still holding things down for the roster. As Judy steps up, another player from next Ruya falls. As Duxan, they're moving in. They have all 4 players alive. I feel like this might be too much for Xing to handle. He's been blinking away as a third party for a long time as Nongshim Red Force fall down at the top. But this is...
Of what just happened. Every team was engaged in angles and fights. Meanwhile, the king of third parties finally decides to not third party anything. And Xing just scooches towards the center of the map, completely hidden from sight from everyone.
It's just like that, my work here is done, and just sort of magically just disappears. He's like, haha, I'm forwards. 2 eliminations, 4th place. This is a great result for STE in the position that they held.
Yeah.
With 7 eliminations being taken by Morph, they did need to keep this gap alive, and they're doing just that.
Big game for Duxon coming out here, though, with 4. They should be able to close this one out. Xing could be the next one to fall. I did catch a glimpse of where he's at. It looks like he's in a really big divot. And with the way the circle's closing, potentially Intense Game will have to be in line of sight first onto Duxon, which means Xing could get a top 3. As for NB, NB should finish out second here. Yeah, Xing in a deep ridge line. If he gets found out by Duxon, he will certainly be done. Not much he could do from that position.
McGrellan might spot him as well from Intense Game, but the push forwards, this crossing should spot Xing. Are they going to be able to look down? Are they worried about this location? I'm not sure they are. I don't know if they've scouted it. Still yet to take damage. It doesn't look like QX is worried about that angle either. So I don't think they've seen this. They're looking right at him.
He's got the cloak of invisibility. NB Esports actually forced in line of sight. And yeah, Xing goes down. Top 4. Not able to get that top 3 in placement points as Duxon does take him out. One of Intense Game gets found and gets taken out as well. It is a 4v2v1, I believe, and this has Duxon chicken dinner all over it.
I think he was underneath that log just there. I think that's where he was hiding. He stepped out to go for the trade, but Binny was able to win the challenge. They weren't looking at it, though, before. I mean, obviously, they just didn't see it, so good news. But this is Duxan looking to try and take home a chicken dinner here. NB been valiant so far. 4 eliminations on the cards for them. Nades over the top. They do still have quite a few. If Duxan eat too many, there's potential, but they don't have the center of the circle, and it's looking great for Duxan.
Yeah. 3 nades thrown right there to make some space to move up a little bit, covering ridgeline by ridgeline. Does need to conserve at least 1 and 2 to get that crucial nog. Good spread out of MB. That's all they have going for them pretty much. But with Duxon with 4 and pretty much really close to that center at that deep ridge line, they should be good. Unless Mondo hits one. Akaze actually from up top nails one in. Mondo really needs to follow that up, but used all his util, no connections right there. This could have been a win for NB if he saved some of those nades.
Shots maybe, a Molotov to control that ridgeline, give it a little bit of cover for Akaze's shimmy, but Mondo does not get those nades in time. The res comes through and all 4 players still active and a couple more nades in pocket for Duxan. They have this ridgeline. They know exactly where these 2 players are going to be looking to play from. Akaze not really going to have too much of an impact here. Mondo steps out into the blue. You've got to imagine that denying the points at this stage is probably more valuable for NB, but they look like they want the challenge. They want to find a point or 2, get a flush maybe, and add to their tally. Spot the player out wide, but Mondo falls first, and Akaze surely going to go down very, very soon as well. Duxan close things down. They sweep up the western side, they take care of the Lone Ranger Xing, and the rest of the lobby soon to follow.
Yeah, huge game for Duxan. This is a team that, honestly, all the teams besides maybe 4th and 5th need the points they can to be in the survival stage. So this is very good out of this team, and they had a really good start on day number 1. We haven't seen them since, finally making a little bit of a resurgence here.
intense game making it late into that match. They were sat in 12th place. Duxan winning this match. They were in 11th place. Inco didn't do quite as well in that match, so maybe they're going to be the ones dropping down. NB late, they were in 8th place with 103. It's a lot of these middle teams starting to get late into these matches, which is absolutely incredible. What a way for this final day to be progressing as we get over this halfway mark. We've had 3 matches now, 1 Erangel left, and a lot of these teams are really going to be trying to step up this pace because it is right down to the wire.
Yeah, with the bubble being so close, there's going to be some winners moving up and there's going to be some losers going down. And oh, I can't wait to see the leaderboards because once again, there's some shifts coming out here between teams that you may have not really expected, but if you don't put in the points, you will be knocked down.
Absolutely. It is still so close towards that bubble. It's rising and rising and rising. I think the biggest jump we had today was obviously that 10-point jump right after the first match, but it's been slowly creeping up a couple of points each time again as well, because each of these teams is still putting in their final effort, right? They have to try and make it forwards in order to survive into the survival stage later in the season. But for now, it's all to play for, both around 3rd place and that 11th place. Things are starting to really heat up towards the end of the final day of Group Red.
You said it, John. Oh boy, Duxan getting a chicken dinner here at a very crucial moment in this tournament. Prior to this game, they were sitting right there at 11th place, literally sitting on top of the cutoff. After this game, though, they got to be feeling a lot better, Seven.
They definitely are. I've been asking about a win from Nox and Red Force for a long time. Guess what? Duxan Esports, they were like, we're the South Korean team that we're going to be stepping up here and actually moving up with that chicken dinner, which is good, honestly. I'm pretty sure once we see the overall, that top 11 is going to be even more compact. I'm pretty sure, I think Cam at one point he was mentioning in Hyper, they needed to step it up. If not, they were going to move out of the top 11. Honestly, Cam, I'm with you because we really haven't seen much of it in Hyper today.
Yeah, they're slipping. They're slipping. We'll see exactly where they land when we go to the overall leaderboards. About the match ranking right now, 21 points for Duxan. Really good performance out of them. And what a chaotic circle. I mean, Milta Peninsula is never a fun place to play around, but especially if it's so concentrated in those trees between Milta Power and Lumber Mill. It's so hard to manage spacing, and so the fact that Duxan was able to keep so many members alive all the way to the late game just shows how good chemistry they had, at least this time around. Now, can they get any more going forward? Because even with these 21 points, I don't know how far away from the danger zone that has put them yet.
So crazy to see. I kind of even was joking around about a next Rio win, and it's so crazy to see them end up in 3rd place as well. Intense game, put some points on the board. That'll give them a little bit more breathing room. But, you know, now that we're kind of done talking about the bottom, we'll talk about them some more. But I'll say at the top, Nigma Galaxy, 0 points here, Cameron.
Yeah, as far as that Nigma comeback, this didn't really work out for them. This time around, it was, they were like close to the center here, right? This wasn't, I don't know, this looked like a game that they should have at least had a better performance at, right? And again, the chaotic zone for them to play around in, but the gunfight just didn't go their way. They just didn't win the fight. That's very problematic and very worrying going forward into the rest of this tournament. If they don't make it into top 3, if they go to the survival, like this trajectory that we're seeing them on right now, it's gotten so long looping into all the games yesterday that there's a possibility that they peaked at like the start of this group stage, and like that's it.
Wild to see, wild to think about too, because Morph, right, they went out early, but they still put up points on the board, and you can just see, wow, now it is gone to a big differential between these two guys. Nigma Galaxy, you said it, 7, that it was up to them and Erangel, so that's one more here to go. How are you feeling about them going into the rest of the day?
Not good. Not good at all.
Not good.
I had this team being in the top 3 with the way that they played it there. I mean, you kind of heard Cam talking about him too, them not being able to adjust whenever they get a tough circle. I wish they wouldn't have pushed towards the middle of the circle. This is a team that needs to learn how to play that outer edge of the circle as well, because I feel like they could have set themselves up. They might have gotten just so used to day 1 and day 2 where they were getting away with some of the rotations towards the middle of the circle, that at this point they were maybe starting to feel themselves, start to go and send it. And then out of all the teams, Seventh Element decided to stop them, and Seventh Element decided to get some points for themselves. Ooh. And I mean, that's another team that I've been hoping that they can make a push for top 11. They really haven't been able to do much. They've been getting to, they at least got some points there in that last match, but they also need to step it up, right? And then Nasser out of the top 11.
Ooh,
that's a big surprise considering how consistent they were being at one point too.
Yeah, I'm looking at that 12th point cutoff right now. Nazar sitting at 12th place with 103 points. Right above them, Eco with 104, IG with 106, then N-Hyper with 110. So it's still maintaining that tightness there where things can switch on a dime. Like Doksan was in 11th place last game. Now they're at 122 points in 6th place. So things can still swing wildly. No one's in the real danger just yet, but that also means that for a team like 7E, who are 15 points away from Nazar in 12th, if they get a win, they can then be a part of the conversation. And next year they'd have to have a win as well because they're like 20 points behind. So they can get involved, but right now it's still like 5 or 6 teams trying to stay out of the one danger position of 12.
Well, you know what? Speaking of danger position, right? It's so close there. Now that 7 Elements got some points on the board, they are, I believe it's 16 points away from Inco at this point. So Cameron, like with that kind of gap and so few games left, do you think they're going to pull out like some kind of crazy strategy to kind of make that up?
Man, we were talking about this during the games about this idea of when do teams start targeting, and especially if you're in the bottom 5 when you have nothing to lose, like do you start like actively targeting someone? I think the number of options for who 7 you want to target, it doesn't have to be just Inco, it doesn't have to be just IG. I really do think they just want to set themselves up to be incredibly proactive during the game, not to like go in a hot drop or anything, just be ready to fight anytime you hear an option for a third party.
They need to target this Erangel.
Yeah. You know what? Okay. All right. 7 said it. They need to target this Erangel. Let's see if they're going to do it as we go into the final Erangel, Group Red.
Hey, you might want to target someone, but how many targets can you do at once, right? There's about like 7 people that you need to be worried about at the same time. It's just so tough right now. At the bottom of those tables, just try and play your best game. I would suggest just stick to your guns, stick to your strats, try and figure out where it's been slipping up and mend those small holes, but it's really rough right now. We're going to the final 3 matches, and we've got about 7 teams competing for that bottom spot, that bubble to the survival.
As far as 7th Element goes, I feel like they just need to be a little more decisive. We saw towards that very end there, they took way too long to take their shots at Nextruya, and Duxon ended up pushing beneath them and taking them out before they could have done anything. They could have taken out Nextruya, picked up a few more points, but they didn't. And I like what Cameron said too. I think be ready to third party. That's probably the easiest thing a squad can do that doesn't involve them getting completely wiped out. So if you need the points, especially if you're not in that top 11, third party is the safest way to go about it.
Trying to pick up those points, just get the little scraps that they can really start to add up to as well, especially down low on the tables. The plane path gives access to basically the whole map here in a way that we haven't seen for a little bit. There's always been one sort of corner of the map where I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably not going to be viable to get to. But I mean, even up to Georgia and Zaki, which I don't think anyone's really going to go for, but certainly accessible to the northwestern side, pretty kind across the board.
We should see FaZe head to George Pool still. They've gone there even when the plane path is further out. This plane path, very nice for everyone. We'll see where this circle goes. And are we going to continue the pattern of the circle popping up where we have not seen yet? So what haven't we seen? We haven't seen shooting range. That's one of the staple zones. Yeah, a Pachinki one. Where I feel like we've almost seen everything that Erangel has to offer besides those.
We haven't. I don't think we've had a coastal finish yet.
Coastal.
We've had a coastal.
Which coast? Like.
Well, on any coast, right? I don't think we've had any cliff finishes. Oh no, wait, we did have that one. I think we did have one actually. I have to take that back. Where it was right towards the end. But Circle goes a little bit on that east side, keeps a little bit of Sosnovka military base in there, but it's mostly on that mainland, centering on Potato Hill.
Uh-oh, Morph! Cleon goes down. Uh-oh. That's a big one.
that's pretty big for the standings, right? 168 points in third place. This is Enigma Galaxy, and to a lesser extent, Udo Alliance's now chance to open up a little bit of a gap. Morph playing on their north side. I imagine we're not going to see them until about phase 4 now, with only 3 players alive, trying to push in from that north edge. But that is a really bad start when you're defending that place.
Yeah, that's definitely a blessing for Enigma Galaxy after their terrible previous game. Morph starting out with 3 should give them a little bit of sigh of relief. Enigma Galaxy, though, still has a lot of work to do. We've seen them just consistently fail when they are met with opposition rotating in. So if that doesn't happen, like if they don't meet opposition, great. But if they do, which is more than likely the case, you know, coming into these final stages of the tournament, they really have to be able to, I don't know, I don't want to say change something up. I think it's just the execution. They just need to execute things better when it comes to that.
But it's pretty late in the day to find these adjustments, though. With 22 out of 24 matches in, right? It's very few opportunities to really bring that to bear. And even if you do make those adjustments, there's still that probability, that potential for you to just lose, even if you do everything right. So over the course of 3 matches, that probability can be pretty impactful. Over a 24-game set, if you're doing everything right, on average, you earn more points and you do better. But when it comes this late, you kind of just need luck on your side as well when you want to pick things up like this.
So this zone, very standard. Probably one of the more standard ones we've seen. I'm taking a look at it. It can get tricky if we start ending up like in a shelter ending, because everything around the shelter area is highly contested, right? You have the big dips, then you have the scattered compounds here and there, and that's about it. But besides that, if a circle goes anywhere else, there's a lot of different dynamic-ness to the zone where a lot of teams could play in. So we'll see what the circle holds for us this time. So far, Erangel circles have not disappointed. It's always been very unique in some sort of way.
It's been really good to see that variety, not always going down to the same place. 7th element, fairly central on this circle, just sort of southwest, this shelter area, playing in this compound. Quite stacked up, so no wide position being found for them. In stage 1, I feel like you can flex out a little bit more, get a little bit more info. You could potentially even have an outpost, even up towards Potato Hill from that position, flex back in for the next phase, but they stay very close to one another. They are very central, which is probably the saving grace for it, but they don't get a lot of information from that spot.
Yeah, I like to see them do a small 2-2. Just go up a little further north. There's that small hillside that gives them so much line of sight everywhere else on the map. I do understand they may be nervous, though, right? They're barely going to be able to make it into that top 11 if they get a really good game. So maybe their goal is just to, hey, just keep 4 up. And if the circles work our way, we'll get the points. They don't want to risk, you know, just having one player getting caught and then thirsted, which can be the case when you're playing on that north side. Nasser, another team very close by to them, Spec already on that hilltop that I was talking about. So 7th element is just going to hunker down and wait for the zones and hope the zones keep shifting onto them.
Nasser, a little bit more spread. Next Ruya trying to move in now from Milta. They find their compound. They're into the garage, and they'll take control there on the southeast side. Slowing rotations in that area, I'm sure. Not too many teams looking to push into it just right now, but Inko from Novo going to look for a cross. Next Ruya not going to guard them out this time. They learnt their lesson. Kanina Power still on Sosnovka military base as well. And they're going to probably have the toughest time of getting off that island.
Oh, yeah, Kanina Power, that's going to be tough for them. And, yeah, I guess why... A good reason why Nexria isn't camping the bridge is because last time they just got spotted out and Inko just went the other way. So they don't want to waste any time. Also, this is a zone where Nexria could get very good positioning into like a second circle shift. Unlike the other game where they were so far away from the zone out on the east side that, you know, they may as well go for a bridge camp if it works out. Long distance shots being taken, NB Esports. This is right around the shelter area. NB will be the first team to take down the shelter area. So they can hold it for the first zone or 2, but eventually teams will start filling in and they will have to share it if the circle does keep going that way.
Enigma Galaxy jousting their rotation route. spiking out from the sides of it. Slowing down. Duxan leaving that bridge camp as well. Moving up to this bridge, and Kanina Power might just wade straight on into it. Nenebeche informing his team that one of Kanina Power's gone through. I don't know if it was spotted either. He's seen the rest of them now, and I think he's going to take the spray. Zagori takes a lot of damage, doesn't quite go down. He tries to strafe across, tries to keep that spray going, but has to swap it out.